Is FaceApp fun or an absolute privacy nightmare?
And would you let Elon Musk stick wires in your brain? Vertical Hold is proudly sponsored by Casa Systems, taking Australian technology to the global market. Welcome to Vertical Hold, behind the tech news, where we talk to Australia's leading technology journalists to get the stories behind the news of the week. I'm Adam Turner, coming to you via a tin can and a few hundred miles of string this week, thanks to a cable NBN connection that's so flaky you could serve it with minimum chips and a potato cake. If the gods of mobile broadband have smiled upon us, I'm joined, as always, by Alex Kidman, a man who's planning to storm the fences of Area 51 this weekend in the hope of hitchhiking a ride back to his home planet. Alex, do you come in peace?
Look, all I'm going to say is I know where my towel is, and by the way, I don't come in peace unless that's a potato scallop, sir.
All right, they're fighting words. We're also joined this week by a longtime friend of the show, Jen Dudley-Nicholson, News Corp National Tech Editor. Jen, welcome back to the show. Do you think the truth is out there?
Well, it's certainly not in here.
You can't argue with that. So this week, we're looking at details behind the viral resurgence of FaceApp, as well as Elon Musk's Neuralink technology, which kind of wants to put wires in your brain. But first, over to the tech news desk. Alex, what's happening in tech news?
Instagram is trialling a scheme for Aussie users of the photo sharing app that'll hide the number of likes you get from each post from everyone but you. The company says it's trying out the system to see if it aids in user engagement around photos themselves, rather than a warring game of getting the most likes for your latest racy bikini selfie. Not that I'm volunteering my own racy bikini selfies. Well, not for free anyway.
Netflix is bleeding customers in the US as the fragmentation of streaming video services starts to hit them where it hurts. In the last 3 months, Netflix lost around 126,000 US subscribers, which it blames on its content lineup as well as price hikes. It was Netflix's worst earnings report since 2011 when it split its streaming and DVD business and lost 800,000 subscribers. Life isn't going to get any easier for the streaming giant as the likes of Disney and Apple chase a larger slice of the streaming pie.
Nintendo's been on a frenzy of new console announcements. Sort of. Last week saw the reveal of the long-rumoured Switch Lite, a $329 portable-only Switch variant for mobile gamers. It doesn't hook up to your telly, and the Joy-Cons don't come off, so it's the slightly less social Switch at a somewhat lower price. This week, we got an update to the regular Switch, with a more efficient internal architecture leading to higher battery life. The new model can manage up to 2.5 hours more than the old model Switch when not plugged in, although you'll have to be careful while buying. It seems that the new and better Switch models will apparently have model prefixes of XKW, while the older existing stock is prefixed with XAW. Good luck getting the store staff to check that for you before you buy.
NBN demonstrated gigabit speeds over the HFC cable network this week, which could eventually deliver a speed boost to the 2.5 million Australian homes relying on NBN via cable. Using the DOCSIS 3.1 standard and an expanded spectrum range on the cable, NBN demonstrated speeds of 988 megabits per second in the Melbourne suburb of Templestowe. Coincidentally, that's exactly 988 megabits per second more than the people in my street managed to squeeze out of the NBN cable this week after a still unexplained 3-day outage. So, Alex, let's rant and rave about the NBN.
Look, I fear for your blood pressure if we do that, sir. I really, really do. I think
I'll take a chill pill.
Kind of
we'll talk about something else.
Calming release via, say, gaming.
Gaming. All right, tell us about gaming.
Well, the big news in this past week has been, as I mentioned in the news, the new Switch models. We got the Switch Lite, which wasn't as cheap and wasn't as modular as I think a lot of people would have liked. And then more recently, the revamped Switch, which isn't quite a Switch Pro. And that's probably going to disappoint people as well, but it's probably not going to dent Nintendo's income any, based on the general popularity of the Switch itself.
Now, Jen, I know that Alex is a serious gamer who has one of everything. You've got kids and I've got kids, and my kids are a bit older than yours. So we have an original Wii, but we've never bothered to get anything since that. And we're still getting a value out of it. What's the Nintendo landscape look like in your house?
I purchased a Nintendo Switch and I have actually not set it up. So I don't know what that says about me.
You're a terrible parent, clearly.
Probably, and definitely a lazy one. Because things get tired, man. However, like apps are still where it's at. Like I got a 5-year-old kid and he's all about apps, and apps are being like shown to him constantly. So I'm too busy kind of having shared time on the couch, making sure that he's not actually purchasing things on eBay when he gets hold of my iPad. That's where I'm at.
Just wait till he's a teenager. That's when he'll be doing the sneaky eBay bids.
Yay!
All right, Alex, for homes like ours, why should we care about the Switch? Is the older Switch offer better value? Should we be looking at the new Switch? Am I wrong to be still happy with my Wii?
Look, as someone who loves a bit of retro gaming, and the Wii is now retro, no, you're totally right. Enjoy the games you're going to play. That's my general mantra. The Switch is a pretty nice bit of hardware, though, or it kind of was. I'm not totally sold on the Switch Lite because it loses so much of that actual switchability, and it does it at a price point that's not that much lower than the Switch we had last week. Last week you could pre-order a Switch Lite for $329. Some places have done it a little cheaper since then, or you could get a Switch for $399, and there wasn't $70 difference there. Now that's going to bump up with this newer model, which has better battery life, but it does ultimately come down to those games, and there are things that you can do on a Switch which, with due deference to some of the amazing things you can do on mobile platforms, you're not going to see there, and you're not going to see on the Wii because it just doesn't have the underlying grunt or, for that matter, the portability.
So, Alex, FaceApp has made the headlines again for, we'll say, all the wrong reasons. What's the story?
Yeah, so FaceApp itself is not actually new. It came out in 2017, and it's basically an AI photo app that does kind of slightly weird or funny effects to your selfies. So when it first launched, it did various kind of beautifying effects, although there was an underlying tinge of racism in that because apparently hot equaled white back then. They've since fixed that up. But it's had this big resurgence in the past week, especially it seems with people going, hey, let's apply the age filter and see what I might look like when I'm 90, and just an explosion of images of people with basically lots and lots of wrinkles. But at the same time, it's then made people think, well, hang on, what is this app doing with my photos? What kind of permissions am I giving to these people? And who are the people behind the FaceApp app anyway?
And what are the answers to those questions?
Well, so the underlying company that develops FaceApp is Russian. They're a bunch of, I think it's St. Petersburg-based developers.
All right, there's a red flag right there. Call me racist. I don't care, but that's strike one.
Well, look, it's really hard to know. It's not that Russian technology is innately suspicious, but it could be. And obviously, you run into some interesting issues around international boundaries and laws and what they can and can't do. What's more concerning is that the way that this app works is you do upload your photos to their servers so that they can do all their AI mashing and apply the wrinkles and remove all your hair or whatever. And they've said they don't actually keep photos for anything more than 48 hours because huge privacy storm erupted over this. At the same time, though, their terms and conditions actually state that you're granting them a perpetual license to use your photos however they see fit.
Yeah, Jen, what do you think? That doesn't sit well with me.
Massive red flags. So, I mean,
Yes.
I've watched a lot of Judge Judy in my time. And from what I understand from Judge Judy is whatever is in the contract, that's what they're actually going to go ahead with. Like, it doesn't matter what they say. It doesn't matter what they say verbally if they're going to, torch their servers every 48 hours. According to the terms and conditions, it says that they have a perpetual worldwide irrevocable royalty-free license to publish your face, your photos, your name, your username, your likeness. They can edit it. They can do whatever with it. They can put it on billboards worldwide. Massive red flags. So, I mean, the fact that they're Russian, I think, has got a lot of Americans concerned, which is quite funny to me. And certainly there's a lot of developers in Russia that doesn't necessarily mean anything. But when you look at these terms of service, you cannot deny that there's some massive holes into which you could fall by just downloading this app and seeing what you look like older. Like, there's no reason why you can't just wake up really early and take a bad photo of yourself and get a
Yeah.
similar effect.
Have a few kids and a few hours sleep.
Exactly.
What about the fears that this stuff could be used to build up a facial recognition database?
I think that is more likely. I think that, while I would personally hate to see my face on a Russian billboard somewhere promoting some ridiculous product, especially if they're going to make me look older first, like that would be terrible. I don't think that's particularly likely. But the idea that there are so many different, uses for facial recognition out there at the moment, we keep seeing more biometric data being used. They have a massive database of faces. Why on earth wouldn't they use it or sell it to create one of these sort of AI recognitions? And by the way, in amongst all of this, the old age kind of attributes that they put on are actually quite convincing. Like they're doing some amazing AI work as it is, but with some of these effects. So props to them, and I look forward to Facebook and Instagram ultimately ripping them off.
Well, if I can actually play, comrade Satan's advocate, as it were, I think I can kind of see where they might be coming from with the rights thing. Because they've said, and again, it's a trust game, of course, but they've said that they're not in the business of on selling these rights. Doesn't mean that obviously their image databases can't leak or a foreign government can compel them to hand them over. That's a different story. But because they can publish to other social platforms if you let them, they could well just be legally covering themselves for the ability to do that across global jurisdictions by picking up that license. It may be just as simple as that. Now, I'm not saying I 100% agree with that, but that could be part of the perspective that they're taking with it. And I also just wonder, and I'm just throwing this out as a thought bubble, really, people share photos of themselves online through Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat and TikTok and everywhere these days anyway. Why are we getting fussed about one service taking probably only one snap? You probably only need to see how you look old once. And, in my case, that's just look in a mirror. But why are we getting so upset about one photo once when, for a lot of us, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of photos out there already?
I think partially it's because this is a sort of an unknown quantity. Like with Facebook, that they're probably mining you for data. Probably definitely mining you for data and trying to sell you advertising, and Google the same. And there's a certain sort of comfort in the fact that, yes, while you're being exploited so they can sell you stuff, there's a chance that a company that big is not going to get away with some sort of massive data misuse. They're not going to start putting your face up on Times Square without letting you know about it. And I suppose, like this Russian firm, they could be absolutely, have taken this from a template somewhere in, a contractual law book. And definitely it could be used to cover themselves. But because we don't know that much about them, maybe it's just safer to look in the mirror.
When I first heard about this story before I read all the details, my immediate thought was this is another one of those apps that people have granted it full access. And not only is it taking your face, it's taken the face of everybody in your contact list. And that's what I was worried about, that it was sort of like a harvesting app, but there's no sign of that, is there?
It could definitely be worse than it is. And certainly we've seen that, especially with Android apps in the past, where it's basically given access. You've granted access to your location and your entire photo database and text messages and everything. Whereas this is not the
and
case
your
with this
contact
app.
list.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Or at least it's not the case at the moment. The analysis that people have done have suggested, no, it's only grabbing the photos that you send to it. For now, those permissions can be somewhat broad, though. So potentially down the track, an app upgrade could start snaffling additional details. As always, if you don't want it to be online, don't send it online, perhaps. That might just be crazy talk coming from old man Kidman, though.
So, question without notice. I wrote a piece for The Age and the Sydney Morning Herald this week about the facial recognition that the Victorian state governments introduced. And the short version is that we have a solar rebate in Victoria on top of the federal rebate where you can get a few grand back on your panels. And until the middle of the year, all you had to do was, send them your rates notice and a few other things to prove that you weren't a billionaire and you were fine. Now, they closed it for a couple of months, and when they've just reopened it in July, they now want to use a face scanning service to prove who you are. So as part of the process, they send you a text message, and if the text message scans your phone and says, yes, it's capable of this, they want you to use your phone to take a photo of yourself and then turn and look sideways to take another photo to prove that it's really you. And then they want you to take a photo of your passport, and then they combine all that together, check that you're really you. Oh, and your driver's license while we're at it. Send it off to some government data center to check that you're really you. And now your phone is your proof of ID. And in future, instead of being asked for 100 points of ID, they will send a one-time code to your phone. Now, they didn't really tell people they were going to do this. They'd only tested it on about 50 people before they introduced it. And in the first 2 weeks, 40% of the attempts bloody failed. But how do we feel about government services introducing that kind of facial recognition and scanning without sort of really telling the general public about it, just dropping it on them?
I mean, I feel bad about it just having it, regardless of whether they tell me about it or not. When I rock up to America and they want to take my fingerprints, I know I have to do that in order to enter the country, but I don't feel good about it. And certainly this one seems to be taking a lot of liberties. I know that there's an Australian cryptocurrency company, and they verify people via a similar method. And of course, you volunteer for that, you sign up to that. But it's very odd when it's a government department that is using this technology without warning, as you say. And I'm not sure how proven it is as well, because we certainly haven't seen it rolled out more widely to other firms.
Well, they're going to. That's the thing. It's Services Victoria. This is the first time that they've used it, but the plan is to roll it out to a whole lot of government services, and it sort of falls under the federal GovPass thing that we've heard a bit about over the last couple of years. So it really looks like, in the government's eyes, the future is in the next couple of years. Whenever you have to approve your identity for anything, it's hold up your phone, scan your face, and they'll send you a code.
Well, it seems to me like there's kind of two problems here. There is the kind of the privacy aspect of it, and I don't mean to diminish that, but it sounds to me like what they did was go into business with a far too limited data set to actually verify against, and that's a bigger problem. I can see some upsides to this. I mean, if you've had to go through all these processes before of getting, verified copies of documents, and then you've got to find a justice of the peace to go and sign them, it can be a huge kerfuffle. It can slow you down massively. I could see the appeal in being able to say, right, well, my phone will verify who I am, and obviously it's got to work. But if it does, I could see
that would
the
be
appeal
nice.
in smoothing out that process. It's not automatically a fail in that sense, but it sounds like they failed in the way they implemented the technology.
Well, they did 3 updates to it in the first 2 weeks, acknowledging that it wasn't doing a great job, adding extra instructions, and more importantly, adding a way to make it fail out quickly. And the reason why I've worried about this, because I was helping my mother-in-law with it, and I spent 90 minutes trying to get this to work for her before it eventually said, no, I'm not going to work. Do you want to do it another way? Now, since then, they've already changed it. So I believe within the first few minutes, it goes, you know what, this isn't working so well. Let's offer you another option. The fact that it had to go live and all these people got screwed over before they went, maybe we should add that feature, does not bode well for the way they think about this stuff before they flicked it on the public.
I'm somewhat amazed that government services bungled is still a news story, but
oh yeah, there's plenty of mileage in that. So Alex, our Elon Musk overlord wants to wire up our brains and get us to all buy Teslas. What's going on?
111111110.
You can't talk about my mother like that.
Sorry, the chords came out of the back of my head. So yeah, this is yet another Elon Musk company, because the guy doesn't have just Tesla and just SpaceX and just even the boring company. He's got Neuralink, and what Neuralink is promising is a new way to do a direct brain interface. They're not the pioneers of the idea of plugging things into your brain. This is actually science that has research going back decades behind it. He's just he's just pitching a new method. And what they're talking about is a robot that will insert flexible threads into your brain. And the reason why that's interesting is both because it's mechanically driven, and there's a kind of scary sci-fi factor to that, but also because they're flexible. So far, a lot of the research has used electrodes which are solid, and That's a problem when you think about your brain, because your brain is basically like a big kind of spongy pudding. It sloshes around in your skull as you move, even if you don't move much. And the reason why people do this, apart from obviously being evil sci-fi geniuses, is because there's an awful lot of interest and there's an awful lot of potential benefit for people who have limited mobility or limited communication ability, or who've had strokes or other kind of quite, life devastating issues or complications. There's all sorts of ways that you can build these interfaces to improve their lives. So there's a lot of potential here, and Neuralink's approach also promises a much higher data rate, which raises the game for what you could then do with these kinds of interfaces.
But is that how they're pitching it? Is to help people with disabilities, or just to make it easy for you to fire off your Elon Musk flamethrower?
It's a bit of both. Look,
A bit of both.
let's face it. Elon Musk is a salesman. He's good at talking about the end game and the big picture. So his vision for this very much rested on synthesizing human brains with AI, which sounds super sci-fi and certainly is a number of years away. But that's his end game. That's where he's pitching it. But in order to get there, you go through the disability route.
So, Jen, how many red flags just went off for you in that conversation? Because I'm like, ping, ping, ping.
It's like this is an idea that people have come up with who've never seen Terminator. Not one of the movies. What could possibly go wrong? Exactly everything. Look, it's interesting, and it's the kind of thing that if anyone was going to say this sort of thing, it would be Elon Musk. So I kind of get that. I mean, red flags for me come up when you've got the president of the company saying, I wasn't really convinced at first, but Elon Musk really turned me around, and it might work. They're talking about an amazing time frame for this sort of thing as well. They're saying that, they could have, and I love this phrase, a human patent by the end of the year. And they're talking about, potentially taking volunteers next year. It won't be me. That's a spoiler alert now. Not putting my hand up for this.
It sounds like the brain slugs out of Futurama that take people over. That guy said Elon Musk changed my mind. There's another red flag right there.
He might have actually changed his mind. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Just whip it out for a newer model.
I mean, in terms of going through the disability route, I think that is it. Maybe it's a gateway drug, but it's a decent gateway. And you've got people already who communicate using computers and sort of small gestures and that sort of stuff. And I can understand if you were facing those sorts of options, then certainly you might give something like a human patent that Elon Musk had come up with a try. Apparently, they're using it on a monkey. I'm concerned for the monkey, but I hope he's playing some good games online. Look, maybe I'll be wrong, but I'd want it to be upgradable.
The monkey was classic Elon Musk, though, because they'd actually just said, oh, look, we've been testing this on rats. And then apparently during the Q&A at the end, he also said, oh, yeah, by the way, we've done monkey testing. And someone from within the company said, oh, I didn't think we were going public with that. So it's very much him pitching it up. But
That's peak Elon.
Yeah, but he also had this longer term, this bigger picture thing about where AI is heading. And I mean, it almost ties back into, making photos look older than you are, because AI is progressing at a rapid pace, whether it's machine learning or true AI, in that if AI overtakes our human brain ability, how do we control it? His argument is we do this to avoid Skynet because we start thinking for Skynet.
Oh, no. God, no.
We will destroy them from within.
He had me with helping people with disabilities, but he just lost me again. Because what you're talking about, the implants and stuff, that's almost like an extension of the cochlear ear, which is they actually put something inside you and then connect another thing to the outside. And that's revolutionary what we've done there in helping people hear. And if you think about it as an extension of that, it actually makes a lot of sense. But then you bring in the whole, stopping the AI overlords from taking control of us. If you really think angry, they can't see through angry thoughts and they can't read your mind. It's real. Yeah, he's lost me.
He doesn't really take baby steps. He's kind of a big picture, bring out the monkey kind of guy. But yeah, I mean, if it had been pitched slightly differently, and if you'd been talking about, people giving people the capacity to communicate who couldn't and using computers, then I think he'd probably win more people over than if he went straight to, this is the AI wars, get something in your head today.
The thing is, this stuff is coming. Others are working on it. And it's, Musk's approach is perhaps a little bit aggressive, yes, but there's definitely going to be more work going into this, more research. He's not going to have patients next year. He's not going to have medical clearance for this for some time because all of those relevant authorities tread so slowly and carefully. It is one thing, and the ethics of animal testing is a completely different podcast, but it is one thing to test on a monkey. It is another to test on a human being just from the legal standpoint. That will take some serious time. So the good news there is we've still got time to dig our bunkers and hide from our Terminator overlords.
What jurisdiction does his secret Martian base land under, though? You're storming Area 51. Find out for us.
So, folks, that noise signals the end of another fine episode of Vertical Hold. So what do you think? Have you used FaceApp? Are you concerned about the privacy implications there? Would you let Elon Musk sew wires into your brain? Send us your feedback via Twitter, the Vertical Hold Facebook page, or your Musk implant. Thanks to Jen for joining us for the show.
Thank you, fellow humans.
Thanks everyone for listening, humans and AI alike. Remember, we're on a big push this year to reach more listeners, so thanks for everyone who gives us a shout out. Jump on your podcasting platform of choice and leave us a review to help spread the good word. Vertical Hold is proudly sponsored by Casa Systems, taking Australian technology to the global market. I, for one, welcome our new AI overlords.
Good dinner.